Welcome back to the Hawkeye Garage. I am Joe. This week's mountain bike video, we are back with the 2021 Trek Roscoe 7. A couple weeks ago when I kind of did the introduction to this bike and a walk around, I addressed briefly the issues Roscoe's are kind of known to have with their rear hubs, and I think we need to talk a little bit more about that. Stay tuned. That's right, last couple weeks ago when we did the introduction and overview of this bike, I did talk about how the Roscoe's have issues with the rear hubs. It seems like pretty much all the years, at least within the last couple years, including 2021. They're just not very good hubs. The bearings go bad. The actual free hub mechanism itself is not very good. And when I was shooting that video, trying to get some close-ups of that rear hub and some sound clips of the sound that the hub makes, I noticed that it's actually starting to sound really awful, like bearing, like metal on metal, grinding noise, just not very good. And this bike definitely has less than 50 miles on it. So as I was preparing or wanting to convert over to tubeless, I decided I need to address that rear hub because there's no sense in having to drain all the fluid out of the tire and make a mess if the hub is gonna have to be relaced. So I'm gonna attempt to get some sound clips of how the hub sounds awful. And then I'm going to talk about kind of some other negatives and where we're going to go from there. Before we continue talking about the actual hub noise, the bearing noise, and stuff like that, let's talk about the engagement. Now, on lower end hubs, the engagement is going to be, I guess, less. Meaning, what do I mean by engagement? That is the amount of travel you're going to have to pedal before you're actually turning the rear wheel. I'm going to try to show you guys the best that I can here. So the amount that I'm moving this crank right there, I can move that back and forth. I'm not getting into the free hub. I'm not ratcheting it yet, and I'm also not propelling the wheel forward. So there is that much right there is doing nothing. And yes, I'm watching it in the camera. I'm seeing if you guys can actually tell. And yeah, it's pretty bad. I have noticed that on the trails where I'm just trying to pedal, especially in the higher gears where you need it to be easy to pedal, but you need that engagement, all the time. As soon as you start pedaling, you need that to be going, and it's just not there. And of course, the hub clicking, the quieter, if you will, noise, the less engagement. So it's kind of, I know the big thing right now in mountain bikes is to have that, let's be honest, it's kind of an obnoxious noise with the higher end hubs, but it does kind of sound cool. It's kind of a weird give and take. But the reason those hubs are so loud is because there's so many engagement points, and more engagement points means the cranks, your pedals, are going to catch that much faster. There's that much more points for them to grab and start turning that rear wheel. I hope that kind of makes sense for you all. At first, obviously, all you're going to be able to hear is the engagement in the hub. And it's going to seem extremely loud. I promise you though, once you get outside on a trail and you're riding, it's almost silent. I was really surprised the first time that I went out how quiet it actually was on the trail. You might be noticing some movement in that cassette and down at the axle. Now I realize there's quite a bit of mud on these tires, which is throwing the balance of the tire off, which is really making things wobble around, especially at this higher rate of speed. But pay more attention to that cassette, the gears, and right where that quick release axle goes through, and you can see everything shimmying back and forth. And that's not my brakes touching, kind of forcing everything out of whack. I've double and triple checked my brakes. They're not touching, they're not pushing the hub around. And obviously as this wheel slows down a little bit, you're going to be able to see it a little bit better, because it's going to be a little bit slower, and things aren't going to be shaking around with all that unbalanced tire weight. And I don't know if you're going to be able to hear the grinding. That's the best word that I can use to describe this bearing noise, or what I would call bearing noise, just based on my experience with bikes and cars. It's almost to the point where you can feel it through the frame back there at the chainstay and the seat stay. It's a really awful noise, and I don't know that you're going to be able to hear it though come across in the video, especially over the sound of that free hub. So where do we go from here? I apologize if you couldn't really hear what was going on very well or see what was going on. It is hard to capture, but I'm guessing if you are watching this video, you probably have one of these bikes and you already know what's going on, or you're looking at getting one of these bikes and you're watching this because you're aware that it's an issue and you're just trying to get some more information. So I reached out to the Trek dealer where I bought this bike. They said that they had seen the warranty bulletin for it, but they had not had a bike come in to make a claim, so they're not 100% sure what the procedure is going to be. Of course, I've been looking online. I have a buddy who has a 2020 version of this bike and is basically doing the same thing. And I've seen everything from Trek replaces the hub with a quote-unquote new hub, and no one really knows what that means. Is if it's just the exact same hub, it's just not 3 months old. If it's the same hub but the issue's been fixed. I've seen things where because parts are in short supply, and depending on where you're at, they will give your Trek dealer credits to put towards buying different hubs to put in there, and then if you want to pay on top to get even better hubs, I've seen that. I've seen people get like upgraded Bontrager hubs that definitely fixes the problem, but there doesn't seem to be like a magic word to get that to happen. Or Trek replacing the entire rear wheel, which is fine, except for then you have or in my case, a 3-month-old brand new bike that has wheels that don't match. I guess is not a huge deal, but kind of annoying at the same time. So I am actually going to take it in this week. I want to get the video made. I want to see what they come up with as far as, I don't know, maybe they'll take it apart and it'll be like, oh, it just needed some grease and needed adjusted, which I would completely understand because it's brand new. Sometimes, you know, things just need retorqued and re-greased after they've been quote-unquote broken in, I guess, for lack of a better term. But I have a feeling they're probably going to want to replace it with a replacement hub, not an upgraded hub, and it's probably going to take forever between getting the parts and just having the work done. So I may just end up buying a better hub out of pocket, relacing the wheel myself, and then having the wheel trued up and finished, which I don't really mind doing because then I can pick the hub that I want. And even though upgrading a bike doesn't necessarily make it worth more, if I do ever go to sell this, with it being such a big issue with the rear hub, having a really nice upgraded one is definitely not going to hurt the value of a used bike. So I don't know. We're going to see what happens. If you have any comments, this has happened to you, or input, please leave them down below, or feel free to email me if you want to do some email correspondence, and then I can relay that stuff back in a future video. HawkeyeSkunkWorks@gmail.com. Any more questions? I know I kind of glazed over the technical stuff with the engagement and the hub and the I realize that, so don't shred me on the bottom that I didn't talk about in depth the technical stuff of how it works. That wasn't the point of the video. What hub, just if you're a hardtail guy, you're a full suspension guy, what hub should I get if I go out of pocket to get one of these? It's a quick release axle. So I probably will go with a through axle, 100 by, I think it's a 142. I'll have to double check on that. and then I'll be using an adapter so that I can use the skewer. But going to a through axle, I'll be able to get a better axle. And again, apologies, I use axle and hub interchangeably. Technically, those aren't the same things, but you guys know what I'm talking about for the sake of the video. Anyway, if you didn't see a couple weeks ago the video where I did the overview of this bike, go check that out. I will link that at the end of the video. Head on over to my Instagram and my Facebook where there's lots of mountain bike content and 4x4 content. The GX470 is sitting right here at the moment, which probably will be in Sunday's video, which is my normal scheduled video. Wednesdays have just kind of been a luxury at this point doing mountain bike stuff. And give the video a thumbs up for mountain bikes, for the track, for the Roscoe. And again, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. So thank you for watching. Until next week, take care. Goodbye.